you are not who you think you are. Consciousness, quantum reality, and the illusion of separation. There is a silent question that lives beneath all human activity. A question older than language and deeper than thought itself. It arises in moments of stillness, in the quiet space before sleep, and sometimes in the middle of chaos, when everything familiar suddenly feels insufficient. That question is not about success, survival, or identity. It is simpler, and yet infinitely more profound. What is truly real, and inseparable from it comes another. Who is the one experiencing this reality? These questions are not meant to be answered quickly. They are meant to be lived. For most of human history, reality was assumed to be solid, objective, and independent of the observer. The universe was believed to exist fully formed, operating like a vast machine, indifferent to who was watching. You were born into it, lived briefly, and disappeared, leaving the universe unchanged by your presence. This belief shaped modern civilization, technology, and even our sense of self. It taught us to see ourselves as separate entities moving through an external world. But this story, as convincing as it seemed, began to fracture when science looked deeper than matter itself. When physicists entered the quantum realm, the foundation of reality began to dissolve. Particles no longer behaved like solid objects. They existed as probabilities, not certainties. They appeared to be nowhere and everywhere at once. And most unsettling of all, they behaved differently depending on whether they were being observed. This was not metaphorical. This was measurable, repeatable, and undeniable. The universe, at its most fundamental level, did not exist in a fixed state until interaction occurred. Reality seemed to wait. The double-slit experiment revealed something that shook the scientific world to its core. When particles were not observed, they behaved like waves, spread out, undefined, full of infinite possibilities. When observed, they collapsed into a single point. A single outcome. The act of observation changed the result. The universe responded to awareness. At that moment, physics crossed an invisible line, because the observer could no longer be excluded from the equation. Reality was no longer separate from consciousness. Science attempted to explain this phenomenon using instruments, detectors, and mathematical models. But none could fully account for the role of awareness itself. What exactly does it mean to observe? Is it merely measurement? Or is there something more fundamental involved? The equations worked, but the meaning remained elusive. And it was here that ancient spiritual traditions quietly echoed an answer they had been offering for thousands of years. Consciousness is not inside the universe. The universe appears inside consciousness. Across cultures and civilizations, mystics describe reality as a projection, a manifestation, a dance of energy. Within awareness, in Buddhism, form arises from emptiness and returns to it. In Hindu philosophy, the world is Maya, not unreal, but misperceived. In mystical Christianity, God is described as pure being rather than a distant ruler. These traditions were never meant to replace science, but to point beyond appearances. And now, unexpectedly, quantum physics was pointing in the same direction. If you turn your attention inward, even briefly, you may notice something extraordinary. Thoughts arise on their own. Emotions surge without permission. Sensations change moment by moment. And yet, something remains constant. The awareness that notices all of it. You are aware of your thoughts, which means you cannot be your thoughts. You are aware of your emotions, which means you cannot be your emotions. You are aware of your body, which means you are not limited to the body. This realization is not philosophical. It is experiential. The observer within you has no shape, no age, no location. It does not come and go like experiences do. It is present in childhood, in adulthood, and in every moment of memory. It is the same awareness reading these words, now that was present years ago, quietly watching life unfold. Science struggles to define it. Language fails to capture it. But it is undeniably real, and without it, nothing could be known. Quantum field theory reveals that what we once called empty space is actually a vast sea of energy, constantly fluctuating, alive with potential. Matter arises from this field and dissolves back into it. Atoms are mostly empty space, held together by invisible forces. Solidity is an illusion created by perception. Your body, the ground beneath you, and the stars above you are all expressions of the same underlying field. Separation exists only in appearance. If everything arises from the same quantum field, then the idea of isolation becomes difficult to sustain. You are not a fragment disconnected from the whole. You are a localized pattern within it. The universe is not something you are observing from the outside. It is something you are participating in from within. This realization does not diminish individuality. It places it in a larger context. You are both a wave and the ocean. Time, which feels so absolute in daily life, also begins to unravel under deeper examination. At the quantum level, equations do not require time to flow in one direction. Past, present, and future coexist. Time appears linear because the human mind organizes experience sequentially. Spiritually, this insight has always been central. The present moment is the only place where life actually occurs. Everything else is memory or imagination. Much of human suffering arises from identification with time. Regret binds us to the past. Anxiety pulls us into an imagined future. Rarely do we suffer because of what is happening right now. When awareness returns fully to the present, something remarkable happens. The mind quiets, the body relaxes, and a deeper intelligence emerges. This is not escape, it is alignment. The sense of a fixed, permanent self also dissolves when observed closely. In physics, particles do not possess definite properties until measured in inner exploration. The same is discovered about identity. There is no solid I to be found, only thoughts claiming ownership, emotions demanding attention, and memories constructing a narrative. The self is not an object, it is a process. When the story of me pauses, even briefly, what remains is not emptiness, but presence. A vast, open awareness without boundaries. This is often mistaken for nothingness, but it is full, alive, and deeply peaceful. Mystics have called it many names: pure consciousness, being, source, the ground of existence. Physics has no name for it yet, but its equations hint at something equally fundamental. This understanding does not mean that you control reality in a simplistic or magical way. It does not suggest that desire alone shapes the universe, but it does reveal something powerful. You are not a passive observer of life. Your beliefs influence perception. Perception shapes decisions. Decisions guide actions. Actions create consequences. Reality is participatory. Consciousness and matter are in constant dialogue. At the quantum level, reality exists as a field of probabilities. Which possibility becomes experience seems to depend on interaction. Awareness appears to play a role in collapsing potential into form. This does not mean the ego is in control, but it does mean that consciousness is deeply woven into the fabric of existence. You matter in ways far deeper than society has taught you. The greatest illusion humanity has accepted is the belief in separation. Separation from nature, from others, from the universe itself. This illusion creates fear, competition, and conflict. But when seen through clearly, it dissolves. What remains is connection. Not as an idea, but as a lived experience. You are not alone in the universe. You are an expression of it. When this realization deepens, life begins to change. Not because circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because perception shifts. Problems are still present, but they are no longer personal attacks. Challenges still arise, but they are seen as movements within a larger process. Meaning is no longer something to be achieved. It is something that reveals itself naturally. Silence becomes meaningful. Stillness becomes rich. Even uncertainty becomes acceptable. You stop demanding that reality conform to expectations, and instead learn to move with it. This is not resignation. It is intelligence. It is alignment with the way existence actually unfolds. Perhaps awakening is not about becoming someone new, but about recognizing what has always been here. The awareness reading these words has never been absent. It has simply been overlooked, distracted by thought, noise, and identity. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be fixed. Only recognized. Truth, in the deepest sense, cannot be given to you. It cannot be memorized or believed into existence. It can only be seen directly in your own experience, in the quiet moments when the mind relaxes its grip. And when it is seen, even briefly, it changes everything. You begin to understand that you are not here to escape the world, but to experience it consciously. Not to transcend humanity, but to inhabit it fully, without confusion about who you truly are. The universe is not asking you to become something else. It is inviting you to remember. And perhaps the most profound realization of all is this: you have never been separate from what you were searching for. The observer, the universe, and the mystery are not three things, but one unfolding process. If this exploration resonated with you, allow it to settle. Reflect on Italiano. Share your insights in the comments. Engage with this space of inquiry. And if you feel called, support this journey by liking, sharing, and subscribing, so we can continue exploring the deepest questions of existence together. Stay focused. Stay consistent. Stay within.